Welcome to Inside Scoop Live, the podcast where indie authors get personal, sharing insights about their books, their writing journeys, and their passions. I'm your host, H.E.A.R.T, and I invite you to join me for engaging conversations with both debut indie authors and seasoned veterans. Whether you're looking for your next great read or a bit of inspiration, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Sherry Whitaker Budziak joins the show today to talk about her new children's book, Jules Moves the Rug. It's a heartfelt story that uses one stubborn rug to show kids and grown-ups how courage, honesty, and a little teamwork can clear the way for new beginnings. Before we get started, here's the inside scoop on the author. Sherry Whitaker Budziak is a speaker, writer, and entrepreneur who encourages leaders and families to find the courage to move the rugs that hold them back. Her children's book, Jules Moves the Rug, grew out of her own journey of resilience and personal transformation. Through the story, she hopes to spark meaningful conversations that help children and the adults in their lives talk openly about change and emotional growth. Sherry is also known for her long career guiding organizations through moments of transition. After serving in executive roles within the medical association community, she founded .org Source in 2005. Since then, she has advised hundreds of organizations as they work to strengthen strategy, embrace innovation, and build cultures where people can thrive. At the heart of her work is a belief that growth begins with honest reflection and the willingness to imagine new possibilities. She is the co-author of 2 books on leadership and entrepreneurship and is currently writing her 3rd. When she's not writing or speaking, she enjoys traveling, trying new recipes, and spending time with her family. And you can learn more about Sherry and her work at rugthebook.com. Well, hi, Sherry. Welcome to Inside Scoop Live.
Thank you, Sherry. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm excited to learn more about your book, Jules Moves the Rug. To get us started, tell us about the book and maybe what your inspiration was behind the story.
Sure. So Jules Moves the Rug is about a family who keeps tripping over the same old rug and slowly realizes that avoiding the problem of the rug doesn't make it disappear. So the inspiration came from really real life, right? Like we all walk around things that clearly aren't working. And in my consulting and leadership work, we see it every day. So I wanted to tell a story that kind of just for kids felt safe and relatable, and hopefully both kids and adults enjoy reading it.
Yeah. I love that the book is about a rug. I mean, it's very creative to me. It's like, it's just a rug. It's in the middle of a busy house and, I love it. When did you realize that something so simple could carry such meaning?
So, an interesting story. I was working with a client that had a rug outside of the boardroom and they had other problems. We weren't engaged there to worry about the rug. But we were doing some management consulting work and we were asking questions. And all of a sudden I kept seeing people trip over this oriental rug outside of this boardroom. And so I said, you guys, why don't we move the rug? And it was one of these things that, people complained about. It was the same issue over and over, but it never got addressed because the rug was familiar to them. It seemed harmless, but it was kind of this moment where it's like, this is exactly what we do. We avoid conversations. We avoid, these was an outdated rug that, was frayed at the edges. And we sit there quietly and nobody was moving the rug. So that's kind of the inspiration or the real inspiration behind kind of the rug of how do you take these things that seem simple, but people are literally tripping over every day.
Yeah, that is so interesting. I love the story behind the story. It's just, you never know where your inspiration is going to come from.
Yeah,
Is this your first children's book?
it is. It is my first children's book.
Oh, congratulations. Very, very
Thank you.
great story. Yeah.
Thank
You
you.
talked a little bit about, why we do what we do. We just keep walking over the rug, and every single member of the family trips over this rug and they complain about it. And like you said, they work around it instead of dealing with it. And why is it so easy for us to just live with and accept something that clearly isn't working?
Yeah. I think that at the end of the day, familiarity sometimes feels safer than change, right? Like
Yeah.
it's always been there. We start to think it's okay. And we tell ourselves it's easier just to step around the problem than to really pick it up and face what's underneath it. So I think that just over time, inconvenience sometimes becomes normal. And we forget that we can make different choices. So that's really kind of put some simplicity around it, I suppose.
Yeah. We do. We get comfortable with the status quo, whether it's good or bad. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Huh. It's interesting that Jules, your main character, and she's the youngest in the family, she's the one that finally says, "Okay, enough." Why
Right.
why did you feel like it was important for that moment to come from the smallest voice in the room, if you will?
To me, it made it safe. Like kids notice what doesn't make sense, right? And they say it out loud. So I kind of wanted to honor that idea that, clarity and courage doesn't have to come from and be tied to age or authority. It can, come from a kid that just says this doesn't make sense and let's say it out loud.
Yeah, and, kids don't have that filter that adults have learned yet,
Right.
"Oh, I can't
Yeah.
say anything because this is how it is." So, in the story, the family lifts the rug, they find a lot of things underneath. How did you decide what those items would be and what each one would kind of represent for the family?
Yeah, so I wanted to address an issue and make it feel like it wasn't, that there was a mess that people were familiar with and it wasn't scary, right? So under the rug was crumbs from old arguments,
Mm,
dust from forgotten dreams, a lost toy, and there's a little apology letter. So I wanted to kind of represent that these are the things that pile up when we don't address them as they happen, right? And I think everybody can resonate with that. Like the little things that, oh, I should have apologized, but I didn't. And then that, creates more mess underneath the rug, right?
right.
So that was kind of the analogy, just to really make it feel familiar and not scary to talk about those things that we brush under the rugs.
Right. I love the illustrations too, the pictures or so. I mean, those are big lumps under that rug, and it's like, how is that
Yeah.
family walking around this rug?
Yeah.
That's great. Did you work with an illustrator on the book?
Yes, I did. I know somebody the other day said, "Oh, I didn't know you're an artist." I said, "I cannot take credit for that whatsoever." Because I love the illustrations, but they did not come from me.
They're perfect, and they
Yeah.
pop and, "Hey, do what you know," right? And leave the
Yeah,
rest to
exactly.
other experts, yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned the stuff under the rug, it's not scary, it's just things that need to be addressed. Was there a special message for younger readers? I guess in your hopes
Yeah.
to understand that approach?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of put out there that, most things that we avoid are manageable if we name them. And that, I think that really the message is that fear grows when we don't acknowledge the smaller issues and we can face things together. And that usually turns out less overwhelming than what we imagined. And I think that we can, take that both with adults and children. And so the message was, while it was written as a kid's book, I also wanted the message to resonate with anybody from 8 to 98, right? Like we can, face things together and not be as overwhelmed when we just are thinking about them alone.
Alright, alright. Yeah, I was wondering about that because, just reading it, it's like, "Okay, this resonated with me," I'm a little older than a child,
Yeah.
so, I was just wondering if that was intentional or if it just kinda happened naturally, but it's the topic that applies to all ages, so,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Now, there's an important moment in the book where Jules says, I mean, because the family's overwhelmed, "Oh my gosh, look at this mess," and Jules says, "Well, this is nothing we can't clean up together." How does that idea of shared responsibility shape the story?
Yeah. So that line is the heart of the book, right? Really it's about that growth and healing rarely happens alone. And that when people stop blaming a problem or blaming the rug, and start working together, that everything can shift. So nothing that we can't clean up together, that we can't work on together.
Right. I love that it emphasizes the teamwork because individually it can seem like it's overwhelming and we can't do anything about it. But when you work together, it's automatically easier.
Yeah.
Yeah. So once the rug is moved and you see the family talking and apologizing and hugging and reconnecting, what do you hope kids take away from these moments?
Yeah, well, I was really hoping that they see that hard conversations can actually bring people closer together. And whether that's families or, in the classroom or whatever it might be. And that, for example, apologizing can be strength, it can repair things. And that's more important than being right. I think,
Mm,
kids want to be right. They didn't do this. I think everybody sometimes has that tendency. So that's the message of, that we have strength in having hard conversations and can bring people closer together.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I love at the end of the book that the phrase, you want to talk about the rug, it kind of becomes a part of the family's almost like a code saying or message. Was
Yeah.
it important to give families a phrase like that they could actually use?
Yeah. So that was really important to me. And I'll talk about it in a little bit, kind of the connection of how the rug kind of came together on a professional level. But, kids experience a story very literally. So
Mm,
they can see a rug and a problem and solve it. So we can say, hey, what's your rug? Right. And it's kind of really overlaps with another leadership book that I'm recently releasing. But my hope is that it gives everybody this familiar language and something to simply talk about. So it's like, what's your rug? Can we talk about the rug? What are you upset about? It just makes it easier just to talk about, I think.
yeah, it's like a safe conversation opener.
Yeah.
I actually was thinking about the elephant in the room when I was reading it, it's like kind of
Yeah.
comparing the rug to the elephant that nobody wants to talk about. But yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Now, you mentioned your leadership work, and this story connects really closely to your leadership work around avoiding hard conversations. What was the challenge in translating that idea into something kids could understand without it feeling, too heavy or too much?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, years ago, I worked with the client that had the rug outside the boardroom, and people were tripping over it every day, and everybody complained about it. Nobody moved it. And I was the one, I finally rolled it up and put it in the closet. And I was like, see, guys, the CEO doesn't even know. Like, nothing bad happened. It's okay. And that was kind of a moment there, even for them, because they had a culture of needing to ask, to move something, to do something. So that was a moment that stayed with me. And it really became the foundation of a kind of a leadership slash self help book that I've been working on for the last couple years. It's being released. It's actually on pre order on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles.
Hmm.
And it's called Rug, Move What You're Tripping Over and Lead with Heart. And the heart methodology is kind of a framework for leading both yourselves and teams. And then from there, my mom kept saying, Sherry, you need to write a children's book. You need to write a children's book. And so I was like, okay, if I can take this idea, because when I started talking to people about the rug and I was doing keynote presentations, and the rug started resonating with everybody in business, because now, again, it was a simple term of like, okay, what's our rug? It took the blame off of what the problem is in an organization to what the rug is. So sometimes the rug might be the CEO, the rug might be our board of directors, or, whatever it might be. So I took that concept and I was like, okay, what if I, make my mother's dream happen and create a children's book from this? And, Jules Moves the Rug is that kind of same insight, but told in a way that kids can understand and parents can understand as well. So that's kind of how this transpired. But, I'm really, really happy with kind of the fact that I was able to take the message and put it in a book that makes it relatable for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like there are so many different groups that are going to relate to this book and use this book. I mean, parents, caregivers, teachers, librarians. What kind of conversations do you hope happens once they finish the book?
Sure. I think just simple ones, right? Like I mentioned, like just easy to be able to say, what rugs do we have?
Mhm.
What do we need to talk about? What's getting in your way? What do things look like if we can clean them up together, right? That's really the really important conversations. And the rug just, I think, creates kind of a fun way to be able to do that, right? That takes away that, you know, anxiety of like, what's your problem, right? Like, what's the problem we're trying to solve for? But, what's our rug? And everyone's like, oh, it's just a rug.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I'm hoping that it just, easily opens up conversation.
Okay. The story ends in this bright, shiny floor underneath the rug, and it almost feels like, hey, there are new adventures coming. At least that's how I kind of interpreted
Yeah,
it. That, the floor is feeling ready for new adventures. What does
right.
that sense of openness represent for you?
Yeah, for me, it's like there's possibilities. So when you clear something out of the way, you create space for movement or joy or growth. Like it's just clearing things out of the way. And once the rug is gone, the floor feels cleaner, right? It's more open, it's ready, it's kind of that really mirrors real life. And so when we finally address things that we've been stepping around, we're creating that space for connection, for joy, for new adventures. And not because everything's perfect, but we're moving what might be blocking us from moving forward.
Mhm. Right. So you have Jules Moves the Rug, you have a new leadership book coming out. Do you see yourself writing more stories around Jules? What I
Yeah.
guess I'm asking what's next for you?
I know. I know. People keep asking me, and I'm like, I don't know yet. So there are a lot more stories to be told. I do write regularly. I have two newsletters on LinkedIn, and on Friday, I kind of talk about the H.E.A.R.T framework every week. But I do think there may be another Jules book, and maybe, what adventures that she was able to enjoy once the family moved the rug. I don't know.
Yeah, I never know, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Now, when you're doing your leadership conversations work, do you talk about Jules Moves the Rug at all? Do you incorporate that at all?
You know what? We recently have. We sent the book out to all of our customers in December. And
Oh, wow.
it's interesting because people, like I said, now we're working on projects, people will just say, hey, Sherry, that's our rug. So again, it really, the rug doesn't feel like a problem, but now people can talk about it like in a really positive, fun way. So I'm loving that.
Yeah, I just think it's great. And it's a good message too for adults. It's like, hey, this is how simple it can be, you know?
Yeah, what are we tripping over today, right? What do we need to move that? So I'm actually a little bit surprised as how it's resonated with people, right? I had mentioned that when I do my keynote presentations, I had all these stories, and some of the stories were hard lessons or things I had been through. But the audience kept responding when I told the story about the rug and how nobody would move the rug.
Mhm.
And it was resonating with people, and they were reacting to it, they were laughing. So it kind of evolved into the central kind of main story. And then that became the title of the leadership self-help book. And that ended up being the children's book of Jules Moves the Rug. So it's been fun. The past year or so, putting this all together has been really fun.
Now, do you have a website for Jules Moves the Rug or a website in
Yeah.
general where people can learn more about you and your work?
Yes. So it's rugthebook.com.
Okay, wonderful. Sherry, was there anything else you wanted to add today for our listeners?
I guess I'll just leave it with this. We all have rugs we step around, right? We talked about it in families, in classrooms, counselors, teams. And so my hope is the story gives everybody a simple human way to help kids name what feels hard to talk about in a really safe way. Because, now I'm really passionate about the fact that because when we move the rugs together, we're making room for connection and healing and possibility and those new adventures. So, at the heart of the story is a reminder that growth doesn't start with big change. It starts when we notice what's in our way and we choose to talk about it together. So I hope everybody enjoys the story. And yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Sherry, I loved learning more about Jules and the rug and you, and thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining me today for my interview with Sherry Whitaker Budziak, author of Jules Moves the Rug. You can learn more about Sherry and her work at rugthebook.com. And be sure to check out our other interviews at InsideScoopLive.com.